I can't get past the relationship between Ed and Al.
Ed and Al are just awesome, and you can tell that they're, in the whole series, that they're together.
Brotherly love, and it's a very powerful thing in the show.
It's such an intense brother relationship, and more intense probably than most brother-brother relationships, just because of the situation, because of the direness of the situation.
Their loss of mom, which kind of started their search and journey, their relationship with their father, and the pros and cons of that relationship.
Basically fighting all the time to try to find a solution to get their mother back and get him out of his armor and everything else. So I think that's positive throughout it.
Their relationship together as brothers was solid, and it was ultimately the main focal point of the show.
The brother relationship, it's meaningful to me in particular because I don't have a brother. I don't have a sister. I'm an only child. And one of the things that I've loved so much about the series is getting to feel like I have a little brother.
In all of the pictures that you see, like the one back here, it's kind of blotted out, but it shows Ed and Al in almost every picture. And so they're always together.
Because of the tragedy that they've gone through and the loss that they went through, and it pulled them together in a way that couldn't be broken by time and space.
Alphonse, he made the decision to sacrifice himself to bring his brother back from the other side of the gate. And then Ed did the exact same thing right afterwards. It was incredibly touching.
Two forces of good bonding to reach a goal or carry out a mission.
Definitely Ed and his brother. That's the relationship that stands out the most to me.
What draws me to Fullmetal Alchemist most are the relationships.
Ed and Al as brothers. The whole show focuses on them. They're the driving force behind all of it.
Edward and Alphonse and their mother, Trisha. To see the relationship of these characters on screen was really pretty cool.
Dante and Izumi. They're both fascinating characters. They're some of my favorite characters in the show. They each have their own ways for looking at the world and deciding how they think they can help it.
Hughes and his family, he's very much a military man and does his job, but he adores his wife and he adores his child too, and it comes through, in a humorous manner, but it's very heartwarming.
Hohenheim messed up very badly as far as being a family man. It's not an easy relationship. It's complex and convoluted, and it's very father-son.
Envy's father is Hohenheim, which is also Ed's father, and there's an enormous jealousy there of the love that Ed received from Hohenheim that Envy never did.
Envy and Ed, that's a pretty nasty one, especially on Envy's part. Just his very being and where he came from explains why he loathes Ed so much.
There are these powerful relationship moments.
I think the Sheska and Winry relationship is really fun. Sheska provides a lot of the comic relief.
In a way, I think that Alex Louis Armstrong felt that he had a bit of a fatherly relationship to the boys. It's comical, but extremely important for this series.
Hughes and Roy Mustang, those are some of the greatest scenes I've ever got to play.
Dante and Hohenheim, they have a long history together, and that's part of the reason that the show even exists, is because of their history.
A lot of them are the same relationships, which makes it kind of neat. Because there aren't those sort of, cut and dried, button down little, okay, these are the bad guys and these are the good guys. And the bad guys do bad things and the good guys do good things.
It's got this beautiful, morose feel that sets itself up against the optimistic characters. It sets itself up against the characters who go on to live and kind of shows you the other side of the world, shows you the other side of how things could have been for anybody in the show.
The characters are really three-dimensional, so it's very kind of true to life in this strange little watercolor world.
The characters are able to change things, but they also are able to sort of alchemize their characters, the way they grow and change.
Even the good guys, they're all broken. They're all flawed.
Some of the homunculi have more heart and more compassion than even some of the human characters in the show.
There are characters for everyone. There's big, bad, mean villains, and there's the quirky good guys with questions and failings and faults, and how they work together to come to some sort of conclusion.
I always really liked the homunculus. I know it seems kind of weird because they're bad guys, but I was always kind of sad when one of them died.
Every character you care about, be they good, be they bad, or any of the myriad shades of gray in between. They're fascinating characters. They all have this purpose that drives the story along.
Strangely enough, I care a lot about the homunculi. They have such a twisted existence. They have such a weird story arc that they have to go through and things that they have to accomplish.
Al and Ed, those are the ones that you're going to care about the most. I mean, they're the driving force behind the show.
To be able to have your hero character be someone that the audience really believes will succeed, but there's always that slight hint of possibility that he could fail.
Nobody's perfect. Everybody screws up and makes mistakes, but they try to rise above it, and be the best they can be anyway. And the characters in Fullmetal Alchemist are no exception.
The relationships are real, and I think it's the question for the human condition of why we're here and what's our purpose, and how do the other people in our lives help us answer those questions.
Seeing the things that Ed and Al go through together as brothers and the trials and tribulations that they face that can pull them apart even from a family type bond of what one wants and what the other wants to accomplish, and there are different ways of trying to accomplish the same goal.
That theme of regret that is so pervasive in the series, the theme of knowing what's happened to you and wanting desperately for it to be different.
There's something about it that just strikes that chord, that tender chord of relationship and love, and it's amazing.
There's this little boy inside this huge thing, and he's so caring and so careful with everybody and everything. You really feel for him.
The price on what it did to Ed and Al, the price on what it did to Envy, to the rest of my offspring, the price on what it did to Hohenheim himself. His whole quest now is one of, sort of justifying himself, somehow redeeming himself, paying the price that he feels that he needs to pay to make up for what he's done.
Shou Tucker's arch enemy is himself. He's constantly making his own life worse in his quest to make his daughter real again.
For Hughes, it's supposed to be a facade, but at the same time, you also know that he really does care that passionately about his family.
When all is said and done, it doesn't feel like you just wasted your time for half an hour. Like, no, you got to feel something along with the characters that you care about so much. And that is, I believe, what makes Fullmetal so endearing and what will make it a show that lasts a very long time.
I feel that it's heroic. When Ed makes the decision in the 5th laboratory to not murder all of these prisoners to get his brother's soul back, like he'd been pushing for that the whole time, and that was just a price that he was not willing to pay, and I thought that was very brave of him.
Imagine taking this journey with these two characters, and then for them to ultimately sacrifice themselves for each other. And so, of course, Ed sacrifices himself to bring Al back and ends up separated from him. That is the most powerful moment for me in the series.
Is when Al saves the kitten. It's fun, and it shows you the pure innocence, the pure good that you don't really get to see a lot of in FMA, because all of the characters have something that they're bitter about. All of the characters have something that's tearing at them from the past, something that kind of pokes its head up every now and again, so you see that there's not a pure evil, there's not a pure good, but that is just probably one of the most pure actions in the show.
I loved when Hughes figures out that Ross is actually Envy in disguise, and because Ross has a mole and it's on the other side, and you don't realize this at first. There's just a scene when they're running, and something about what Ross says makes him think, and there's just a slight understanding in Hughes's voice, and then later he springs it on her and says, "I know who you are," and then she disguises herself as his wife and kills him as his wife. It's a cold-blooded way to kill off anyone, but especially Hughes, someone who's that devoted.
I think the show is very successful in definitely heroizing Ed. He's not an opportunist. He's not looking for opportunities to be heroic. That's just simply who he is.
Why is Full Metal so big? That is a question that if someone had the answer to, it would be used on every show.
You've got all of the aesthetics that make it a beautiful package to look at. Just something that you can sit back and enjoy. If you don't want to invest yourself anymore, that's fine. You'll still enjoy it.
It's got everything. It's got blood, guts, and drama, and violence, and sex appeal. And
I feel like it embodies everything that people love about anime.
The honesty of the series is probably what spoke to people a lot.
The animation is beautiful, and the characters are really well developed and continue to develop throughout the show.
It was one of those shows where you go like, wow, everybody is buzzing about this. Like, what is it about Alchemist that makes it stand out from everything?
You really got to know the characters, and you really got to kind of attach yourself to the series and to the plot line.
It's also a soap opera. I mean, those are elements that draw people in, and this show has all of them.
1 second, you'll be laughing a whole bunch at some really funny scene. Then at the next one, you'll be crying because something really bad happens. It's just that mix of feelings that it can make in you.
All the layers in the characters, the different types of characters. You've got your villains, you've got your antagonists and your protagonists, you've got family, you've got all kinds of different issues going on in one show, and it combines it all together very well.
The story and how well written it is, and the fact that you can watch this journey from beginning to end. It's not just a portion of it, it's not just the happy bits. You see all of it, the nitty-gritty as well as the happy moments.
Lots of action adventure, there's lots of family, there's lots of heart, there's lots of philosophy, there's lots of religion. There's a whole bunch of things that you wouldn't normally find all in one show, and it's in this one, and none of it's forced. Like, the story unfolds naturally.
I think the right directors and the right actors and the right writers all sort of, there was a synchronicity that made it kind of explode.
pretty landscapes and cool music.
It's a very honest world that the characters inhabit, but the morality is also very clear.
It's all story-driven. You know, the stuff that I've enjoyed of the stuff that I have seen has all been because of the dynamic of the characters interrelating.
The ability of this show to 1 minute have you laughing, and that quick, you're in tears.
I'm like my character in that if I could, and I had to, I would go insane and nearly kill myself and meld myself into some crazy chimera for my kids. I would do that. It's sort of like what I do every day anyway, because I mean, like, you get home, you've been working all day, and your kids climb on your back, and they sort of attach to you as if it was a chimera.
Sloth, like myself, can be kind of manipulative at times when it suits our interests. We're both pretty active, though, Sloth and I, in terms of our lives. You know, we kind of go after what we want.
I'm very happy to say, Ed is short, and I am not.
Because we have the same hair. That's the secret. I think that's why I was cast in the role. They went, you know, Scott's got the ponytail there. If you just pull a few wisps down, shave out the mustache, he kind of looks a little like Hohenheim.
In the series, I didn't feel like we were very much alike at all because he was kind of a voice of wisdom. Not so much.
I don't want to say that Archer and I are one and the same, but I definitely think as far as nuances and some idiosyncrasies, we share some of the same things.
My associations with Jean Havoc. He tries to have luck with the ladies and doesn't always, I can totally relate to that.
In the movie, he's a little more compulsive, and I kind of got some of that.
Envy and I both have we're going to get things done kind of attitude. I like going into that really low register physically with the character. It's a fun character to play for me because it's kind of what you always want to do on the street and you don't get to.
With a character like this, you take all the negative qualities about yourself that you don't like to show in public and that you don't like to broadcast, and you sort of embellish them and sort of color them with broad strokes.
Of the different characters that I've had the opportunity to play, I would be most like Sheska. She loves books, and she loves to learn, and she loves to read, and she loves to solve the mystery, even when her answer is space aliens.
I don't know what would happen, but I would just get in the booth and I wouldn't have to think of some other situation out of the life of Caitlin in order to make those emotions happen. But I could just watch the screen and really think about Winry.
The fans are always, say something shorter. What would you say if I called you a pipsqueak? And of course, they love to hear some of the rants that Ed has.
At the audition, one of the lines was, sorry, but I got a wife and daughter to go home to, and stepped out of the booth, and I said, well, sorry, I got a wife and daughter to go home to, and left, and I think that might have gotten me the part.
As you're recording it, and you see some of the mannerisms and the gestures and how they move their hands and how they move their head and how they smile and stuff, it's like, wow, I actually do stuff like that.
There was one session when I was directing and Vic Mignogna was in the booth. He was recording Ed. And he had a scene to do in which his cheek was swollen. He'd been in a fight and somebody punched him, his cheek was swollen. And we had to get that effect because, he's got the swollen cheek. You don't want him to talk completely clearly. It wouldn't make any sense.
I had this great idea. Rather than trying to sound that way, I'll just stuff something in my mouth and that'll be like real. So I had, hold on a minute, said to the director, and I ran out to the vending machine, and I looked, let's see, Doritos? No, that won't do it. No, candy, no. Milky Way, no. Powdered sugar donuts.
We had a finite number of donuts. He couldn't just keep doing it for the line and then spit it out and then do it again.
If you hold a donut in your mouth for too long, it starts to turn into this goo and kind of a oozy, yucky pudding type substance. And it started like oozing out of my mouth. Hold on a minute, hold on.
Oh God, I don't know who was closer to vomiting, Vic or me or my engineer. It was a contest for tossing up the cookies or donuts. We ended up keeping it. It sounded like he had a swollen cheek, but it was swollen with donut powdered gooey nastiness, really.
I haven't eaten a donut since.
Directing Aaron is always fun. He, being that at the time that he started the show, he was 11. Whenever
I was in the booth, I was kind of leaning back in my chair, like my mom and my teachers and everyone I know tells me not to.
He fell off the stool onto the floor of the booth and could not get back up.
I ended up stuck back there, sort of like that.
So we ran a take, beep, 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 and I heard nothing. Aaron, help! Can you get me out?
There have been times when I've had to whisper and act, but never a whole character who just whispers the whole time. So you'd be whispering like this, and Mike would say, "Can you give me more of this?" And I'd say, "How? I'm just whispering. How do I make?" He's more joyful there, and I'm like, "I'm very happy whispering."
As you can tell, I have a little bit of a Texas accent that is just kind of there all the time. And we had one scene we were recording where I had to say arm and leg, which I still can't say correctly. And we probably recorded that 20 times. By the time I actually said the word leg correctly, I was so furious and exhausted that I think it came out great because of that.
Sheska makes a lot of noises. And that's one of the challenges that I find as an actor is, what does it sound like to get thrown down a flight of stairs and slide 20 feet on your face on the road? From a history of a stage actor to actually act it out in the booth and fell out of the booth.
My favorite scenes in the whole series are the scenes between Ed and Al. Those quiet, intimate, tender scenes where Ed doesn't have to be the tough, go out and do this, but he's allowed to be himself.
Was when Trisha died. Because Trisha was, I think, a very vital part of the story and part of telling the story, the beginning of the story. The spirit of Trisha and the effect she had on me personally that was really, really cool.
Is when MV is just so upset that she's beating the floor. It's beating the floor and going crazy. It was for me to do, me. I got to scream at the top of my lungs and just destroy things and just, for the first time, really, to see MV fall apart.
The most memorable for me is when you first see Shou Tucker as the Chimera, and you don't see him. He's dressed, he's got the glasses, and you see him sort of as this bulky thing, and then once you realize that he's twisted over backwards on top of it, I think that's probably one of the most wicked things I've seen in anime.
Greed's death. It wrenches your heart, and Chris Patton did a fantastic job of showing you that it's not evil. It's not that black and white. It's not evil and good. It's not, he's dead. Because he, homunculus or not, soulless or not, had a heart.
The last episode that I was in where Hughes dies.
I couldn't believe that they did that. I couldn't believe that they killed off such a major, likable character.
After he died, I was, down because I'm out of work for a few months if you lose a character. But Mike said, well, let me show you something. And he took me to all the websites where girls were crying because Hughes died. And I went, okay, that's worth it.
When he gets killed, or so we think, when he has this, grueling accident, I guess if you could say, that turns him into, the metal man, RoboCop on steroids, But it's funny, the most things I remember about him most is are the death scenes.
They had a big Fullmetal Alchemist photo shoot, and they invited Vic and I to go to it. And I'm thinking, okay, Fullmetal Alchemist photo shoot. There'll be 10 people. Do they want our picture? But I go there, and there are 80 people cosplaying Fullmetal characters, 80 of them.
I had no idea for a long time that Fullmetal Alchemist was so popular and that I was one of the main characters. Whenever I realized just how popular it was, at my own school, there were 30 kids out of 400 that liked Fullmetal Alchemist a whole lot.
These two, I would say, 10-year-old kids, looked like a brother and a sister, came up to me in the lobby of the hotel and they said, you play Greed? And I said, yeah, I do. And they said, that's really cool. Will you do his voice real quick? And I said, yeah. And I said something gravelly, blah, 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 blah. And they were like, cool. But will you do Greed as a Shaniqua sister? And, I'm feeling I'm gonna throw up some red rocks. It's not pretty. You better get away. Mm-hmm.
Wow, these people are crazy about these shows, and this is intense. And I just loved it. They knew more about what was going on in these shows than I ever did, and I'm in the shows.
To meet the people that make what these people love, this is what they're into, they dig this. I'm really excited about meeting those people. I want people to come up to me and go, I hate your character, I hate Archer, because that means that I did my job, I
had a guy dressed in Hughes' uniform and his hair is sticking out a little bit, and I said, you need a little bit longer hair sticking out here, just like Hughes. And he goes, yeah, I'm growing it out. It's gonna be really long. I think this time next year it'll be perfect. And I was like, wow, now that's a serious fan.
It does something to you to see that much kind of support for something that you've put a lot of yourself into and put a lot of heart into.
Every time I have ever encountered fans anywhere, like any convention I've ever gone to, it still staggers me. It still sends me reeling back when people are just like, we like what you do. It's just like, really? That is so cool.
There are two words that come to mind when I think of the fans. One is humbled, and honored at the privilege to be a part of something that has meant so much to so many people.
The series did such a good job of making you question regret that the movie is important because it gives you a glimpse of hope after the regret is over.
I think it kind of unifies the episodes. I mean, you've got several episodes, you know, spread out over a long period of time, and there's something about a movie that kind of brings it all together and gives you the story kind of full force all at once.
This is what gives closure to the whole story. I mean, there's been this long, epic journey that, you know, Ed and Clan have taken. And I think we finally get a chance to, you know, find out where it's like, oh, that little storyline that started back in episode 3. Unagi, the little clues are starting to pay off. I see.
I know a lot of people were left wanting more at the end of the Full Metal series. You never knew really what happened to Ed and Al and everyone else, and this show's a really nice bookend. This movie's a really nice bookend for the series. You finally get that resolution you didn't get from the end of the series.
All the familiar characters are back that you love from the series, and the story just takes you from one world to another.
People have told me that they were kind of disappointed in the ending because it didn't really solve all that many problems. And this movie is what's going to give you the ending that you really want.
The great thing about the movie is that it answers a lot of questions that have been left unanswered, and the fans love it when you do that.
The movie allows for a little bit more of the story to be told and maybe wrap up a few more loose ends.
The fans need to watch this movie because it brings more closure to the series. A lot of people think that it ended with the two brothers apart from one another, and you don't know what happens to them next. And there's many other loose ends that people would like to see if they get tied up. And I think that the movie, for the most part, accomplishes that.
To be able to put this in the mainstream and put this on the big screen, I really think it's where it deserves. So I mean, it's I'm excited to be sitting in my seat with my popcorn and my Coke and sitting and watching and say, hey, that was me. You know, that's gonna be cool.
To be a part of something like this, to be a part of this, like, you know, anime revolution, and to have your voice be in these episodes forever is just a really, really cool thing. And then to have people, fans, who are so dedicated and devoted to it.
I'd like to think that my career in anime will be a long one. It's about 7 years old now, and I've gotten to do roughly 60 different series. But if it isn't a long career, if there isn't a lot more after this, I can't think of anything that I'm prouder of and that I love more, that I put more of my own heart into, that has meant more to me than Fullmetal Alchemist.
Working on the show was a really great experience, and it was a show that people can be proud of that they worked on, you know, because I've worked on shows in other studios that I wasn't so proud of, but this one was a great one.
I'm so privileged to have worked with so many different people on the show, the voice actors and the writers and everyone involved with its production. Everyone cared so much about it. It was such a unique experience to have so many people have so much love for something. And I know that that doesn't always happen. It doesn't come along all the time. So I feel so privileged to have been part of it.
The whole experience working on Fullmetal Alchemist was great for me, and I was so excited when I got the part. I wanted it terribly bad, and working with the directors and doing this project has been one of the best things I've ever done.
It says important things about us as human beings and part of this greater question at large.
It's been such a great experience, and I'm so proud of everyone who's worked on it. It's been wonderful, and I don't think, I mean, I can hope that I'll be able to work on something comparable in the future, but at this point I can't imagine anything comparing to Fullmetal Alchemist.
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Winry Rockbell? Winry, is that my name? Did I say it right?
We had a cat, but he died. So we had to bury him. We didn't attach him to any of the children, but
Wow, I'm the most boring interview.
We were attached to the cat, I mean, emotionally. But
It's pretty cool. Wow!
he had started peeing everywhere, so he had to go.
He had to go. I had to kill the cat.
Winry Rockbell, but it.
I didn't kill him, I mean.
Get it off me! How about I just say Winry? All right, I'm gonna do that again, Cass.
I had a cat with 6 toes once, not the one that's dead, but a different one. What?
And we're done. Thank you.